What's up, y'all? I'm J Wang, aka Tiny Ted, here with Volumes Hip Hop. In the dying days of the murder house, apparently, to talk about my upcoming project, Tiny Ted.
On a catatonic sea, and I don't really wanna be me, but I don't really wanna be you.
So first off, where are you from?
So I always tell people Macon, but I'm actually from like it's a little town called Smar, not even really a town, that's between Macon and Forsyth. It's out in the country, and my mom's family has been there forever, so I grew up kind of in that area, then moved to Macon, and that was where I kind of like got into music and all that.
Okay, cool. So how'd you make it to Athens?
So I came up here for school, and then, well, partially school, partially music. It was, my parents wanted me in school, and I was like, alright, cool, I can do school. I'm gonna do it in Athens where there's an awesome music scene, so I can be a part of that.
Yeah, so what's been the most inspiring thing about the Athens music scene to you?
Really just like how much is going on. Like any given night, you can find someone local who's doing something awesome. And there's always something happening musically.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you get started making music in the first place?
So I've always my whole life I've kind of been writing songs in my head, and I've listened to basically everything while I was growing up. I would settle on a genre for a couple years, and I would kind of go into that genre and be like, oh, maybe I can do this, maybe I can write this type of stuff. So I'd always be writing songs, but I was never really good with instruments. I never really had a great singing voice, so nothing really fit. And then it was after I graduated high school, I ended up just kind of stuck in Macon for a while. And during that time, my friend sat down, he was like, yo, I've been listening to a lot of J. Cole lately. Let's bump some J. Cole. And we listened to 2014 Forest Hills Drive, and I was like, oh shit, I can make this type of music. I can do this. And then been on that path ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. So at this point, who in the industry do you think has the biggest influence on you?
Biggest influence? Definitely a lot of Cole still. He's one of my favorites just because I feel like he's always saying something real. He's not I fuck with the pussy, money, weed, let's party, have a good time. I love all that. But I love even more the type of music where it's okay, I've got a message, I'm trying to teach you something and help you improve your own life just by telling you stories about my life. So Cole's a big influence in that sense. Musically, Future, Young Thug, love all those guys. Rocky, love some A$AP Rocky. And kind of Lil Peep was a huge influence in Tiny Ted. I was never really a huge fan, but after he died I went and listened to his music, and I was like, man, the way he mixes guitar and just the trap drums, trap vibes, and then these just amazing guitar melodies. That was a huge influence in Tiny Ted.
Okay, so we'll move on to talking about that. When is Tiny Ted officially releasing?
July 21st? Yeah, July 21st.
And what platforms is that going to be available on?
It's going to be SoundCloud, Spinrilla, my mixtapes probably, and some other things maybe. If anyone watching has some platforms they want it on, hit me up. I'll try and get them up.
So how long have you been working on this project?
It started probably explicitly working on this project around January or so. I think kind of the ideas and the motivations and the themes in it have been building up a long time, and then around the beginning of 2018 was when I started putting all those into music.
So what is your inspiration behind this project in particular?
So this project is basically all of my dark thoughts, because I've had a lot of issues with depression and kind of never like any horrible drug use, never anything where it was like my life was in danger, but I've definitely gone off the deep end a little bit with drugs, and just kind of like anxiety, the feelings of that I won't be good enough, I guess, for whatever goals I'm trying to set, that I won't get there. Those were kind of the voice of Tiny Ted. And those thoughts, I've struggled with those for a long time. And then finally, I always tried to make music when I was starting off that was party, let's have fun. And then I got to a point where, especially like listening to Lil Peep really set off Tiny Ted, because I listened to that and I was like, man, this is sad, like it's kind of emo, but he's saying something, like I can feel it. And at that moment I was like, man, like I need to let all this stuff out. Like I've been holding it in so long, I haven't had an outlet. So I'm just going to make a project that's all that, and really give that side of my brain and those dark thoughts a voice. So then from now on, whenever I hear that voice, I can really recognize it and I can say, oh, that's not a good thing to think. I should not think that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Tiny Ted is his own persona per se, correct?
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that? Just explain that side of things?
Yeah, so Tiny Ted, the way I put it is Tiny Ted is the voice in my head, or a voice in my head. And I really wanted to separate myself from Tiny Ted, because I don't want to be Tiny Ted. Like I don't want to be that voice. I don't want people to look at me and say, oh, he's the dark emo guy that only talks about depressing things and makes me feel sad about life. You know, that's not who I want to be. But at the same time, like I had to get all this out. I had to say it all. So I was like, okay, let me make up a person who can say all that. And that can be him. That can be Tiny Ted. And when I'm Tiny Ted, I'll be Tiny Ted. You know, I'll take on that persona. I'll play that part. And then when I put it down and move on to something else, I can leave it behind. Kind of like a David Bowie with Ziggy Stardust. You know, when he's Ziggy Stardust, oh shit, I didn't even realize. Like when he's Ziggy Stardust, he's Ziggy Stardust. That's who he is. And David Bowie doesn't exist. But you know, when he steps back and says, okay, I need to step away from that for a while, he can go back to being David Bowie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. Obviously, David Bowie is like one of my biggest inspirations in life, so I love that. And it's definitely, I understand that you have to accept that part of you. It's not something that I don't think you can, for one, ever remove entirely, but it's about finding the place for it, for sure.
Being able to just control that influence.
Yeah, so that's very cool. Is this your first official project?
Yes and no. It's my first official solo project. When I started rapping, it was with a group called Crack a Pack, which is pretty much what it sounds like. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was just me and my friends getting together, having a good time, saying, hey, let's try this rap stuff. And I feel like I've grown a lot since then. And now this is like my first. And you know, it's a J Wang project, but it is Tiny Ted. So I wouldn't say it's like my personal, like, it's not really my voice's first official project. It's not really like the start of my career in terms of what I want to say with my life, if that makes sense. But it is my first official like solo project.
Yeah, okay. So you've also chosen to premiere a short film, Road to Nowhere, alongside this project. So I guess explain Road to Nowhere. What is that? What is that project?
So Road to Nowhere, it comes from one of the songs called Bullet to the Brain. And that song, it was a night where I wasn't feeling great. I was just sitting downtown at Nowhere Bar, and I was staring at a bottle of Bullet bourbon. I was like, man, I'm gonna take some Bullet to the Brain. And that was kind of, I don't know how it grew into a song, but it just kind of grew into this song that was about being on a road to nowhere and realizing that like the path I was on wasn't really leading me anywhere. If I wanted to do something big with my life and be able to have a voice and, you know, tell stories, use music to help people help themselves, then I wasn't on the right path to doing that. So that's where the idea of Road to Nowhere came from. And then the film itself is kind of just a story of a normal day. It's just me waking up, going to work, doing normal stuff, set to the music of Tiny Ted, to kind of be like, show just like the way I think throughout a day where I'm on a road to nowhere.
Okay, I like the context of that, especially with the nowhere bar and the
Yeah.
road to nowhere and all of that. That's very cool. Okay, so Road to Nowhere is set to the songs of Tiny Ted, so that's kind of, is it one short film or is it a series of videos?
It's one short film.
Okay.
It's kind of, I guess you could call it like a long form music video. It's kind of like an amalgamation of songs and like all chopped together. I don't really know what to call it in a technical sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Which that's kind of getting popular on YouTube, where people load their whole album up and just put the cover on it. So at least you're giving them something visual to work with. Do you have anything in particular that you want to address or talk about?
Not really. Just, you know, this project, like I said, it's a lot of the bad thoughts in my head. And as I started showing it to people were like, man, this is depressing. Like, are you okay? Like, do we need to? And I was like, no, like, it's not. This is like, this project was the healing process for me. And, you know, it's not a process that ever ends. It's continually growing, continually recognizing it. But it's all about just hearing that voice in your head and being able to recognize, okay, this is the voice that I have within me. It's part of myself that's trying to hold me back from doing what I want. So I just want people to, when they listen to it, don't think about it in terms of like, oh man, like, it's so depressing, like, this kid's so crazy, he needs help. Like, it's not, because I think everyone has that voice, whether you accept it or not. You know, you've got that voice in your head that tells you you can't do what you want to do. So just when you listen for my representation of my voice and try to relate it to yourself. And hopefully I've written some songs that will make you think, oh, I kind of think like that sometimes. And maybe I shouldn't. Maybe this is unhealthy. Maybe if I change my way of thinking, I can fulfill my dreams to the fullest extent.